I'm joined now by Virginia Republican Congressman and member of the House Armed Services Committee, Rob Wittman. Congressman, we'll talk about the possible spending bill votes in a minute, but first to the tight governor's race in the Commonwealth of Virginia. As a Virginia lawmaker, what are you seeing regarding level of interest in this governor's race in your district and elsewhere?
Well, Mike, I've had the chance. I'm going to Glenn has been focusing on what's important for Virginians, and that's why he's really connected with folks in this race. And I've traveled around with him. The level of excitement is off the charts. People are really focused on what's best for their families. He's connected on issues of education, where he wants parents to be in charge, not government to be in charge, wants to build back Virginia's economy, wants to make sure we keep our communities safe by supporting police, not defunding police. All of those issues he has connected with folks on, and they have been incredibly important, I see, across the state of Virginia and in the 1st District as to what people want to see in the next governor.
It's been a 12-year slump for the GOP in terms of winning a statewide race since Bob McDonnell 2009. Is this time going to be different?
I think it will. I think Glenn has captured a level of frustration that people have and what they're seeing happening with local school boards, with what they see happening in the economy, with what they see in efforts to defund the police, make communities less safe. He's really been able to capture an undercurrent that people want something different. They want to change. And this just isn't in Virginia, but I think it's beginning to show itself across the nation. And that's what he's been doing, and that's what he's been capturing. Is he travels across the state of Virginia. As you look at the record crowds that come to his rallies, and the things that he is talking about are exactly the things that people want the next governor of Virginia to address. They don't want big government. They actually want to be in control of what happens in their communities. They want to see efforts to grow jobs. They want to see efforts to make their communities safer. And Glenn has captured that, not only with what his proposals are, but he is a very personal individual, and he's like your next door neighbor. And that too, I think, puts people at ease. And they have in mind that Glenn would be the perfect person to be the next governor of Virginia.
Okay, to your day job on Capitol Hill. We've seen some deadlines come and go in terms of voting on infrastructure and the social spending package. They're going to try again on Tuesday. Does Speaker Nancy Pelosi get it done?
I think they're going to have a very, very difficult time. This massive tax and spend bill doesn't reflect the priorities of the American people. If you look at it, not only does it have massive tax increases, but it's going to result in more government, more inflation. It's going to also put us on the path to socialism, especially with what her progressives want in her party. And it will, I believe, put off the American people as to what they see as what's necessary for government to do going forward, Mike. So I think it's going to be very difficult for her to get the votes, because there is a giant gap between the progressives and the moderates in her party. I don't know that she can bridge that gap.
Some Republicans like aspects of new infrastructure, of the infrastructure package. What would you say to those considering voting for it?
Well, listen, there are certain good aspects in the infrastructure bill, but only a small portion of the bill actually goes to building roads, bridges, ports, airports, and broadband. Much of it are Green New Deal policies that don't do anything to help the long-term economy in this nation. And that's what people are looking at today, Mike. So I think there's a separation. I think more and more of our people are looking at truly what's in the bill. And I understand some of them worked on putting together parts of it. But if you look at it and understand what we need, to me, a simple path forward would be to take the money that's unspent from the 5 COVID-19 relief bills that came forward and put that into transportation. I think you can get agreement tomorrow. Take the $700 billion that's left over that's yet to be spent, put that directly into infrastructure, and make that what this bill is about, and have it exclusively to roads, bridges, ports, airports, and broadband. And I think that is the path forward.
Congressman Rob Wittman of the great Commonwealth of Virginia. Big day on Tuesday in Virginia and also on Capitol Hill. Thanks for your time, sir.
Thanks so much, Mike.